Hey guys, Hella Bella here, and today we're going to be talking about the book Recovering from Emotionally Immature Parents. And this is a sequel to the book Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. It says practical tools to establish boundaries and reclaim your emotional autonomy. So this book focuses on what it's like to sort of redevelop your relationship with your emotionally immature parent, and also how you can focus on yourself, because bringing yourself to the relationship and bringing like the best attitude and the best, point of view is how you can develop a better relationship with someone who is emotionally immature. And if you're coming to this video, there's a good chance that your parent is just not emotionally available. The relationship is probably very one-sided. It can feel lonely. And one of the first things that she points out is that emotional loneliness is the result of feeling unseen and unresponded to, no matter how hard you try to communicate and connect. So part of what having an emotionally immature parent means is that we are kind of always looking for something that we're just not quite getting from our parent. And they may not even understand that they are not providing this. And this happens in childhood, but it also blends over into adulthood. A lot of emotionally immature parents keep us stuck as a kid in their head because they don't understand that we have grown up to have our own thoughts, our own beliefs, and our own feelings. So that relationship kind of is confusing at times because they may even still be treating you as your child self instead of your newly formed adult self. So one of the things she also says is that in order to get along with these parents, it's easier in the short term to tune out who you really are and what you really want. But in the long run, you end up burdened by obligation, guilt, shame, and feeling trapped in your family role. And she does talk a lot about the family system and how a lot of times when you have an emotionally immature parent, what tends to happen is that the relationship revolves around their wants, their needs, their feelings, their beliefs, their tragedies. You can even begin to feel like you are somewhat responsible for their own feelings. I know personally for me, I felt like a lot of pressure for both of my parents to be happy and for both of them to, be living lives that I felt like was good for them. And I took on a lot of, responsibility for my parents in my early 20s, because a lot of what I was told when I was younger is that, we have to keep it together as a family. Our core belief is that, we stick together. And you can see how things like that basically ingrained in me a sense of duty and a sense of needing to keep everything together for the family system and needing to self-sacrifice. And as an adult, I'm kind of learning that healthy family systems don't ask their children to self-sacrifice. I think one of the core points in the book is that it feels emotionally lonely to be around an emotionally immature parent. It says EI parents like to tell their children what to do, but they're uncomfortable with emotional nurturing. So they may take good care of you when you're sick, but they don't know what to do with hurt feelings or broken hearts. And as a result, they may seem artificial and awkward when trying to soothe a distressed child. So if that's something that you can relate to, the feeling of whenever you do have a feeling that you wanted to bring up with your parent, or you do have something that was important that you wanted to share, or maybe just a little emotional release that you wanted to have with them, you're not able to do that because what happens is they wind up trying to give you practical advice. They wind up going into fixing mode instead of listening mode. And this definitely is one of the types of things that a high achievement type of parent would do. They would definitely look into it as this situation could be fixed by doing X, Y, and Z. And so instead of being empathetic and listening and being there and being that shoulder to cry on, or that that person who you can just have someone listen to you, they wind up trying to go into a mode of this is a problem that can be fixed, we need to move on from this, you need to wrap this up and get over it. So one of the messages that you learn is that your feelings are not actually valid. Your feelings are an overreaction, or your feelings are something that you need to put away, you need to be ashamed of, or you need to get under control, because we don't want other people to realize that we're normal human beings and we have feelings, because that would be the worst possible thing. So this is another point that she brings up, is that when you try to share something important to you, they're likely to talk over you, change the subject, start talking about themselves, or dismiss what you're saying. Instead of sitting with you and letting you get it all out, EI parents typically offer superficial solutions, tell you not to worry, or even get irritated with you for being upset. So that mirrors what I just said. It seems like they're very uncomfortable when you bring up feelings of sadness or feelings of loss or anything that is a negative feeling. They want to push it down and push it away. They don't want to actually deal with it. And so as a child, that message to you is that you need to get this under control. Another concept in the book that she starts talking about is emotional takeovers. So this happens when your parent basically takes over the situation and puts everything through the lens of their own perspective. And instead of it being two adults in a situation, it becomes them trying to control you, trying to control the family system. And so she goes on to list a lot of the things that these types of parents do. My parent often overreacted to relatively minor things. My parent didn't express much empathy or awareness of my feelings. When it came to deeper feelings and emotional closeness, my parent seemed uncomfortable and didn't go there. My parent was often irritated by individual differences or different points of view. When I was growing up, my parent used me as a confidant, but wasn't a confidant for me. That one's specifically true for me. I didn't get much attention or sympathy from my parent, except maybe when I was really sick. If I became upset, my parent either said something superficial and unhelpful or got angry and sarcastic. It was deflating to tell my parent about my successes because it didn't seem to matter. Facts and logic were no match for my parents' opinions. So there's actually 16 different ones, and I won't read them all, but those are just the ones that kind of stuck out to me. It seems like any of these things that the parent are doing are kind of to almost shut the child down. And so I wound up feeling, as I was growing up, a lot of just shame in relation to any kind of emotional release that I had. And even now, I still find it very difficult to cry because crying was something that was like not allowed in my house. It was always like, don't cry. It's, we'll get over it. It'll be okay. Some people have it worse than you. And so I learned at a very young age that, my feelings were something that were meant to be pushed under the rug. Another trait that emotionally immature parents tend to do is they dismiss other people's experience of the world and they dismiss other people's feelings. And a lot of times if you've had an argument with them, they can be really quick to say, okay, let's move on. And they don't want to actually address their part in the argument. They just want to push it down as fast as possible and get it over with. And they can even, sort of say that, oh, you're to blame as well because you're a part of this argument. And they're very much like a type of person who wants to just move on from something. They don't understand why you could potentially still be upset about something days or months or even years after the fact that it happened, because for them, it's over with. Like it's something to move on from. It says that they may be blithely oblivious to how their recent behavior has made them unwelcome. They can't see why things shouldn't go back to normal when they're already ready to interact again. They are famous for their philosophy of moving on and getting over it. They don't understand why things from the past should be such a concern now. It's over. Why haven't you moved on like they did? And so that's something that I think, is important, because making you feel like you are in the wrong for still feeling upset about something is definitely a way that these parents can control you. They can basically take away your validation of the situation. They're taking away their responsibility of it and putting you in the role of, well, why haven't you moved on? I've moved on. The situation's over. Why are you still bringing this up? And I think that that's something that abusive people do as well. They're quick to say, okay, well, that happened in the past. Let's leave it in the past. When for you, it's definitely still something that's in the present, right? It stays in the body, it stays in the mind, and it's something that stays with us because we know that we've been wronged. And on a deeper level, of course we're not over it. Of course we don't trust them anymore. Of course that we don't feel like that we can come to them. And so they can't possibly understand why you would still feel that way. So obviously all of this can be very damaging and very hurtful to deal with, especially years later as you're coming to realize, maybe as an adult that you did not have the best upbringing or that they weren't there for you. And so as you navigate through this, I think it's important to reflect on the concept. On page 59, she says, you are more likely to be healed by your own efforts than anything your parent might do. Whatever does improve in your relationship with EI parents will likely be caused by a shift in your outlook, not a change in them. So she's just highlighting the fact that coming to this relationship with an expectation of my parent is going to change, or my parent is magically going to develop into a fully formed adult, and they're going to evolve into, someone who can communicate with me and be empathetic, and, all of these wonderful things that we've always wished they would be, that is likely not going to happen. She's saying that the only thing that you really have control over is the way that you interact with them now and how you process each interaction. And one thing that I think that she says is really important throughout the book is that you should focus on the immediate situation. Don't focus on your entire relationship that you've ever had with this person. Try to look at it on a case-by-case, situation-by-situation basis and say, okay, I'm going to lunch with my mom this week. Where are we going to eat? What are we going to talk about? How are we going to catch up? Am I going to think about all the old wounds, or am I just simply going to view this as a lunch with my mom and a time to catch up? Because if I look at it through the scope of every interaction that we've ever had, negative and positive, the entirety of our relationship, it's very hard for me to let go of all that in the current moment and have a positive outlook on the situation if I'm going into it with all of that. It's much better for me to say, okay, what is the end goal for this? The end goal would be to have a successful lunch with my mom, to catch up with her, maybe find out what's going on in her life, maybe share a little bit of myself with her, but not too much. You do want to have some boundaries. And one thing I've realized in having those interactions with emotionally immature people and parents is that if you allow them into your life and you allow them to take your joy from you, you're going to only rob yourself of that joy, because the more you share with them, the more ammo you give them, the more they can take away from you. So unfortunately, what I have learned is to not give up some parts of myself that I don't feel like sharing. If I have really good news, or I have something going on that just, lights up my life and is something that I'm passionate about, there's a good chance that I'm not going to be sharing that with my emotionally immature parent, because for them, it's an opportunity for them to dismiss or belittle or spread negativity on something that brought me joy. And so I found a lot of grief in this in the beginning, because it felt like I could not go to them with something that, made me very happy. But what I've learned is that there are other people in your life who will not steal your joy and who will be happy for you. And your parent may not be doing this on a conscious level. Your parent maybe only knows that the lens of negativity. And so, going to them with news and opportunities, while it may seem like, you want to get that gratification from them, you want them to acknowledge you and express, oh, I'm proud of you, or oh, that's a wonderful opportunity. Looking at it through the lens of what are you more than likely going to get? What is more than likely going to happen? They may find out, that you've got a new job interview, and they, say something negative, and then in your head, you think about the negative thing during the job interview. So overall, I would be cautious of giving away your emotional energy. And one of the main points of this book she talks about is how to redevelop the self in order to shed some of the beliefs from your parents, because a lot of the things that they taught us or that we learned from them are not necessarily something that we have to carry for the rest of our lives. It may just be something that, okay, I had to deal with that as a child, but now I'm going to take that hat off. I'm not going to wear it anymore, and it's not a part of my internal identity. So going with the concept of the emotional takeover, one of the things that emotionally immature people can do is that they will tell you that something is urgent or an emergency, and that you have to help them solve this problem, and that it's not going to go away until basically you step in and you are the superhero and they're the victim. And so you have this basic mentality that, you have to help them, and your job is to protect them or to solve their problems. And so, they can be very manipulative in terms of, wanting you to stop what you're doing, wanting to pull you away from your family. So for instance, if you're married and you have a child, they may want you to stop doing what you're doing to come over and assist them. They may ask you to put other people before them, and even to the point of doing like little tests or pushing your emotional boundaries. And so I think it's important to remember that you don't need to fall for them trying to make you feel like their problems are your problems. And one quote that I love is, "Your lack of planning is not my emergency." So what that basically means is that just because somebody got themselves into a pickle because they didn't have the foresight to think ahead, and now they want you to bail them out, that is not your problem. Your problems are exclusive to you. The only problems that you can take on for other people are the ones that you allow yourself to. On page 68, she talks about falling for flattery, because a lot of times what they'll do is that as long as you are complying, the relationship is wonderful. It says EIPs offer a spectacular relationship deal. If you do what they want, then you will be everything to them. However, the fine print says that you are only as good as the last thing that you did for them. You are either wonderful or useless to them, with nothing in between. They will exaggerate everything. Like small children, every frustration or insult is the end of the world. And you may have been around people like this, and it is extremely draining because you walk on eggshells. You try to think, okay, what am I going to say that is not going to offend them? How can I get my point across without coming out, over too harsh? Is sharing this information with them going to cause them to have a meltdown? And it really is just kind of like a ticking time bomb, because you know that at some point they're going to not like what you said, and they're going to have a negative emotional reaction to it. Where, for instance, me as a normal, healthy adult, if I don't like what someone says, internally I may say something to myself about it, I may make a note of it, but it's very rare that I'm going to, have a conflict with them or have some kind of thing to say to them, because I know that at the end of the day, their beliefs are their beliefs and my beliefs are my beliefs. So there's no point in trying to get them to feel the way that I feel about a certain situation. One of the chapters in the book is called EI Parents Are Hostile Towards Your Inner World: How to Defend Your Right to Your Innermost Experiences. And what she basically says is that the parent feels entitled to assert parental authority long after you've become an adult. So like I said in the beginning of the video, they're still treating you like a child-parent relationship, where they should be treating you as an adult-adult relationship. So she talks about how you can establish, the ability to self-protect, the ability to have relationships with other people that are intimate, and kind of an awareness for your life's purpose. Are you just going along with things? Are you going off of what they've told you, or did you develop your own code of ethics and your own ability to see, okay, what is success to me, and what is living a happy life? What does that actually mean to me? Because one of the things that they're going to continue to do is to sort of invalidate your view of the world. And so I guess kind of setting up security within yourself is what she's talking about, knowing that you are confident in what you believe and then not looking to them for that. And this is not going to be every single parent. I can't relate as much to this kind of stuff, but I can relate to the fact that that they definitely still feel like they have some pull or control over you. In chapter 8, she talks about the art of mental clearing, and one of the things she said is that if you draw two circles and you have one circle overlapping the other one, basically one of the things is like all the things that your parent has ever said to you, and then the other one is your own mind. And so your mind is being eclipsed by their version of everything. And so when you actually remove that circle off of yourself, when you take all that away, you get back parts of yourself that you didn't have access to before. Because what they've done is they've sort of put all of their beliefs onto you. They've downloaded all of their irrational fears, and you have to be able to say, okay, I'm going to remove that now. You're your own circle, I'm my own circle. And while we may have some things that overlap, I don't think that it's necessary for you to have all of the same beliefs as your parent. One of the most profound things in this chapter, to me, it was on page 151. She says, consider that some of your most anxious thoughts might be multi-generationally transferred fears, originally designed to protect a long ago ancestor from a hostile environment. Think of these demoralizing and inhibiting thoughts as dusty, rickety furniture that has been passed down in the family for generations. Maybe it's up to you to be the first person to say you don't want it. So it's powerful to think that for years your family may have been going through these generational traumas, and you may be the first one who has actually said, wait a minute, you guys, I don't think that we have to do this anymore. The buck stops with me, and I'm not going to, be doing this for my children. I'm not going to be involved in these, crazy family systems and these dynamics where we're all enmeshed and we're all, sort of having these intertwined emotional lives, and it just isn't healthy. You may be the one who finally has to say, we're not going to do it anymore. And so being the first one to set boundaries in a family like this, personally for me, has been very challenging. It's challenging to even maintain those relationships, because I know that a lot of what I get in the beginning is, oh, she thinks she's better than us. She thinks that, we're not good enough or whatever. And so there's a lot of resistance when you try to set boundaries with emotionally immature people, because they see it as a threat. Because if things are going the way they want, then everything's running smoothly. When someone else speaks up and says, okay, I don't like the way that I'm being treated and I don't like the way that we're interacting, you've suddenly threatened the entire family system that may have been running for the last 100 years. So, taking your place in that role of being the person who stops the trauma, it's a really brave thing to do. And it's a really cool thing to be able to say, like, look, I'm the one who's not going to deal with this anymore. And, I have conversations a lot with some of my best friends about this, about saying, like, isn't it crazy what our parents accepted and the treatment that they allowed from their relatives? And isn't it crazy, like, how we've gone through all of these family dinners and we've had people just like treat us crappy and treat our family crappy, and we've seen these interactions and we've sort of said, like, no, I'm not going to be the one who deals with that anymore. If people want to treat me in a loving and accepting way, then I'm willing to come be there and be in the moment with them. But if not, I'm not going to participate in that. She also talks about finding a mentor or some sort of support system. And I think that one thing that we can think is sometimes that, other people are better than us, or other people have it together, or maybe that they're, they don't come from the type of family we come from, and so somehow they're unscathed by trauma. But the reality is that most people have undergone some sort of trauma, and everyone has a story to tell. But one of the things that she says is being around an admired person who is emotionally mature will feel different. Instead of making you feel inferior, they will inspire you to pursue your goals. Emotionally mature people show an inclusive, respectful, and co-equal attitude towards other people. They elevate you with them rather than make you feel less than. And so I think that this is definitely true. Anytime I've had mentors, either in college or professionally, I can definitely see a difference in a person who wants to tear you down versus a person who, habitually brings other people up with them, and a person who, you can turn to them, you can ask them for advice. They may be older than you, wiser than you, but they don't make you feel like you're in a position of inferiority. Towards the end of the book, she says again, time spent with your EI parent will be more productive if you keep your mind on the immediate interaction instead of the whole relationship at once. It's too much pressure to try to have a good relationship with them. Just try for constructive interaction in the moment. So basically just one thing at a time. Don't get overwhelmed, and don't try to look at it through the lens of the entire relationship. So I think that this is a wonderful book in terms of helping you sort of come to the table with your emotionally immature parent or maybe family, and just being able to kind of navigate what it feels like to look at this through a lens of, like, okay, I see them for what they are, but how do I see myself, and how can I bring myself to these interactions? And I apologize for the noise, but it seems that my neighbor has decided to cut their grass at the time that I am finishing this video, so I guess that is my cue to wrap up. But I really enjoyed this book. I would definitely give it probably 4 out of 5 stars. I do think I like the first book a little bit better because it's more of about explaining the theory behind everything, and this one's more about tactics to sort of help you move on and help you rebuild your relationship with yourself. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. I will catch you guys in the next one. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. Take care, guys, and have a wonderful week.